Anna.
Lisa.
Anna Morgan. Anna Momo. Has anybody ever called you that?
No.
Anna Momo. I feel like they do Anna Banana, and that's probably worn out. Did they call you that as a kid? Is that a thing
All
that you did?
the time,
Right?
actually. The game, you know, Anna Banana playing the piano.
Yeah. Did you do the clap thingies where they do the, like,
you did the splits.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Were you ever able to do the thing in the playground where they had the bars and you put one leg over it and then you would swirl around, you know, like do little spins over and over again? That happened in California. I grew up in California.
I used to do the thing where I'd climb to the top of the monkey bars and then I put both my, like bend my knees and then you hang from your knees and then reach the other one and then, you know, sort of flip down.
Okay, yeah.
But then one time I fell from the top and that hurt. I think I stopped doing it.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Thank you for coming with us today. I met Anna Morgan last night. Immediately, just as the kids say, vibing. And then, you know, I was like, you know what? Let's just have a cocktail. Let's relax. Let's put on our robes. Let's have a chat.
I've been drinking mezcal for 2 days. People who know me know I don't drink, so this is funny.
Well, you're in Chola Russell Simmons' house, and they have they could be their own mezcalito. Like, we should do a speakeasy, by the way. Let's talk about that. Put it on the notes.
When in Rome.
The playground. You know, I once got punched on the monkey bars. I was protecting girls, as I still do. Yeah, they did not like that, and the guy just socked me right in the eye, and that was my first taste of injustice. Have you ever had any injustice on the playground?
Well, have I had injustice on the playground of life, or just
man, we're gonna get there. So put a pin in that. We're gonna keep walking up that cliff. Playground sounds like it was a fun time until you fell.
Yeah, I was actually kind of like a weird kid until I figured out. I was kind of speaking about this. I was like a pretty introverted and a bit shy until I like forced myself to be like more social and extroverted. It would take me like a little bit of time to warm up to people. Maybe that's still true, but I would say I'm more confident so people aren't aware of like the internal conversation that's happening. I think sometimes like an idea or like something will like straight up, like I'll hear a sentence in my head and then I'll be like, that's not mine. Like, that's not me.
You know, good that you say this.
Yeah.
It's true. You can't trust every voice in your head.
You can't trust every voice in your head.
You don't know who they are, but you can't be like, I don't like it. I don't like what you just said. I'm not going to do. You know? Your playground. Let's go back to where was this playground? Where did you grow?
Oh, I grew up in the Bronx.
Oh, love.
Yeah, I'm from like the middle of the Bronx.
Boogie down.
The boogie down. Yeah.
What was it like during that time? Because we're like, we're similar in age, you know, and I feel as if like, you know, we're talking about hip hop being birthed the boogie downs around, you know, late 70s and such, and so you're coming around, you're opening, you're presented to the world. Here's a little Anna Momo coming out, you know, figuring things out. Like, what was the Bronx like during the time, like Reagan's, I think, in office at that point?
When I was growing up in the Bronx, it was really sketch. Like, it was during the crack epidemic, right? So it was crack epidemic. Reagan. I wasn't allowed outside. My family's like very strict Christian Jamaicans.
A lot of children being stolen around that time too.
Yeah.
Couldn't go outside either.
We weren't allowed out. I was saying I learned how to ride a bicycle when I was 21 at Burning Man.
Oh wow!
That's
like, difficult to ride that.
Well, you had to, right? It was like, how else are you gonna get along? They were like, all right, here's the bike, figure it out. And I was like, here we go.
There's like dust kicking up.
And you're on acid. Everything's glowing. You're like, where am I?
Love it. You know, I went to Burning Man just to see what it's about. He said, let me go. I was depressed. I was out of work. I was like, taking a break, and I was like, now go. I've got time. And you know, I found that there's lots of lights and sometimes hot dogs. But I had a couple jobs. I got a couple jobs there.
Hot dogs, fresh salmon. Yeah.
You get almost anything you want.
Pretty much.
Do you have a playa name?
No.
Yeah, me neither. Somebody asked, and I was like, my playa name's Dave, and then I walked away. But when was the last time you were at the BM?
2007.
So a little bit of an OG. At that point, they're kind of moving. They're moving towards more of the massive part of it. They're maybe taking away.
Yeah, there was maybe like around like 30,000 or something that was going at the time. I hear it's like twice as big. But I have friends that went back then who still go now, who still have an amazing time. And then there's all the romantics, I like to call them, like the people who are like, it's not as good as it used to be. Like nothing's ever as good as it used to be.
Yeah. Especially if you go over and over again, right? Like, you don't, it's kind of like doing your first whippet. You know, that's just amazing. Your first whippet of the night, because
I was gonna
constantly chasing that. I once found the theory of infinity on a whippet, and I think I held on to it. But I was doing whippets out of a bunny, it's stuffed bunny called like a little bunny that I found in a it was like a random toy bin, and I was like searching. I was on acid, and I was like searching. I picked him up. I was like, "You'll do," and he was like, "You'll do," and I took him around with me, and named him Dante because I stuck the whippet can in his little hands, and I was just like, ah. And that's the Inferno, the Infinity, and Dante still with me to this day. I like taking him out every once in a while. We go and do a little camping trip.
That sounds a little sinister. Dante.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, I immediately think of like, now we're in hell.
Oh, but Dante, you know, like
because whippets, I've never. I mean, like, I've heard like the fabric of space-time ripping like on whippets, especially like the combination of like whippets and psychedelics, but I don't think I've ever had a dark time on whippets.
It wasn't dark, it was fun. I just like laughed. Oh yeah, I guess like looking at it and I just started laughing.
In actuality, I think hell would be fun.
Here's the thing: make friends with the devil. That's what I say. I say if it's when they're like you're gonna go to hell for whatever you do when you like, and I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm an affable person. I think that the Satans would love me. I think that all the little demons
Satans would love me.
You know, I think they would. There's probably more than one. Here's the thing about that. Also, here's what I'm like I was thinking about the other day is that whenever they try to say, oh, you're gonna go to hell and you're gonna be fucking tortured forever, I'm like, that's really funny how. The version of this hell that I think that like hardcore Christians have is like inflicting pain only on them, right? Like it's never saying like, you're gonna watch fucking immigrant children drown in the ocean as they're doing this day. I'm like, that's fucking hell. You know what I mean? Like if you're asking me, I'm worried about hell. It's like, I mean, fine, whip me. I guess I can still feel. I don't know. I'm in fucking hell. Like like do I have a concept of time in there even? What's hell is watching what's actually happening today, and I do feel like I've hopped into a really weird timeline of sorts. It's just
yeah. Big up our parents for like hopping. Like basically, they didn't have like any major wars. Like they actually like had a pretty peaceful time. They could still like afford to buy houses.
Oh yeah.
That was a decent timeline.
Yeah. Except for the whole fact that their children were being fucking stolen. Like the 80s, they're just ripping children left and right off the streets.
Yeah, we were legit. I was just saying this, Christina. Like we were not allowed out.
You weren't.
I wasn't even allowed to go on like class trips. Like they wouldn't sign the permission slip. They were like, why do you want to go there to this museum so someone can take you and rape you and throw you off in a corner? Why? And I'll be like, what do you mean?
Yeah. And I never really, I remember like up until I was like a teenager, I was like with you, always with the raping and the throwing in the corner and then the ditches. And like, you gotta sing a new song because now I'm numb.
But I have to say that like there's some legitimacy to that. I never got raped, and I feel very fortunate because I remember I went to a military boarding school for high school for like 3 years, and I was like, this is gonna get serious. I was like 15 years old, and I was sitting around in a circle with like 6 of us total, and the girls started telling rape stories. And I was the only one that didn't have one.
And you're like, I wasn't allowed outside or to the museum. Was it? Did y'all get raped in the museum? Because that's where I was told it would happen. And one girl's like, yes, I did. Like, and that, I mean, like, it's almost like, it's so rare. I think almost for women not to be sexually assaulted or to have a story of sexual assault.
It's something like 1 in 4.
Good, yeah.
It's pretty insane.
People have herpes more than they do get sexually assaulted. They're like 3 in 4 people, and they're like, well, 1 in 4 has been raped. And so wait, hold on. Does that sound right? Maybe it's flipped over. Maybe it's 1 in 4 have herpes and 3 in 4 have it. And none of this, there's nothing wrong with any of it. We're just throwing out statistics. And I didn't go to college, so I don't know anything about statistics. So, you could fast forward this part if you'd like. The growing up, why military high school? What'd you do? Did you do something? You steal a car? You go joyriding?
No, my dad was a Marine. He was an ex-Marine. That's how I happened. And he had gotten remarried. And, like those Latinas that watch like way too much novelas.
Oh, man.
And they try to like live their life like they're like in a novela. This is my stepmother. Mm-hmm. So like, I ended up getting like booted out of the house.
She's like, you're gonna be a problem.
She was like, I'm gonna have this man to myself.
That's so
kind
wild
of thing.
To me. The stepmother's. Well, I've heard the story. Like I don't have one.
She's so like it's like the quintessential like stepmom, like from like a bad TV show that I'm like, how can you be so cliche and okay with it?
My mother. My brother and I have also said that my mother does, personify like different characters in TV shows. I also think she has borderline personality disorder, so she doesn't know who she is. But like, like that. It's like I do feel that way. Like when I think about growing up, like I don't think she ever had anything she could really kind of pass on to me, or like kind of, like or bond with me on, because she was always kind of playing some character. She's Latina, obviously, and like Native American. But it's like I do find that interesting, because now hearing it from you and like maybe like another perspective, and I think also one of my other friends whose mother will do that, like she'll say like something like, "Oh, hello, sunshine," and she's like, "But you've never said that in my entire life. What novella did you see where they say that all the time?" And you're now adopting that behavior. So you're part Jamaican and Okinawan. Who is who?
So my dad's Jamaican and my mom's Okinawan.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever been to either or?
I was born in Okinawa, and then we moved to the States when I was like 2, to the Bronx, to my grandma's house. We moved to a house full of Jamaican ladies, basically. Nice. So we had like a family in each room. So it was like me and my dad and my mom in one bedroom, like auntie and 2 kids in another bedroom, another auntie and her daughter another. Great auntie, great grandparents, all my grandma's house.
No one's allowed outside.
And
all
we
the
were
kids
not allowed outside.
They're like, find a room and go to it. Like, that's all you can do. Just I don't care which room, just figure it out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we had a front yard and a backyard. We were allowed out there. Yeah. Like kind of. It was like a stoop with like it's like a cement stoop and like a little thing, and then like and then there was a little garden in the back. Oh, so we could be like outside, but not like leave the premises.
I love that my friend she had a place in Queens, and she had like a pretty nice backyard, a little like she lived in just a little brownstone apartment and whatnot, but she was like, the backyard's all mine. And I was like, that's so lucky for you to do that. Get to a spot
we like grew like callaloo and like.
What's a callaloo? Isn't it that child, the French child? It's like a child, like he's bald, got the one head thing. That's the thing, right? That's his name. Callaloo. Is it cauliflower? What is it?
I don't remember.
Beanstalk?
I think I was it beanstalk?
I don't know what a callaloo is. He was a child. He was French. Named Callaloo. I think that's what his name is. It was after my time.
I think. That callaloo is just like a green. It's sort of like a collard green, like a Jamaican green. Yeah.
A lot of beef patties. You have some beef patties cooking around in there. I love a beef patty.
I do love a beef patty. Yeah.
So good. Even the frozen
oxtail is probably oxtail recipes, like my comfort dish. For sure.
How do you make the oxtails yourself? You go and you kind of stew them around. You got a crock pot,
I do have a crock pot.
I love a crock pot.
Yeah.
I guess we call them slow cookers. It's kind of like calling Kleenex tissue or a Band-Aid. Is it Band-Aid?
A Band-Aid is also a brand. Yeah.
How lucky. You know what I mean? Like how lucky they are to make a thing and then become the household name, and like, I invented Band-Aids. I don't know. Who is that?
I wonder what kind of money the children, like, who is the heir to, like, Band-Aids?
Right.
Like, what are they got going on? Who's the
Band-Aid heir? Is their house full of them? Do they have, like, a lifestyle? Like, they're like, hey, you're my friend. Here's a pack of Band-Aids.
For the rest of your life.
Lousy, right. I'm just lousy with Band-Aids everywhere. I'm sick of seeing them. Got to get rid of them. Something to think of. I was thinking about the person recently who came up with the phrase, up your butt and around the corner. I was on acid in the woods, and I was peeing, and I was like, you know what? That phrase, up your butt. You ever hear about that? Up your butt and around the corner? I wonder if they like put that on their gravestone, because it's such you can't monetize it, but someone said it. Maybe a cousin said it to somebody else. Kept going. I
really think it's funny how like slang terms or like phrases end up in like our shared lexicon. Like my friend was telling me this story about how in college, they walked in and their friend, this girl Sally, walks in on someone watching porn and freaks out. And so her friend group came, they started saying, I like that about as much as, not Sally, it was Mary. I like that about as much as Mary likes porn.
Love that.
And then she was like, I was in an airport and I heard someone say that. And I looked and it was no one from my friend group, which means that made it out of the friend group. She was like, it could only be that Mary and that porn. Like, what else could they be referencing?
It travels. I have a friend who recently, she likes BoJack Horseman, and she was watching this, one of the episodes where his mother dies, and he goes to Taco Bell and he gets a churro. And then somebody asks him how he's doing, and he's like, my mother died and all I got is a free churro. That happened to her. Her mother died. She went to Taco Bell. They're like, what, what would you like? She starts crying. They're like, are you okay? She's like, my mom died, and they gave her a free churro. Then she's watching, years later, because it happened when she's a teenager. Now we're, like in her late 30s and whatnot, and she's watching BoJack Horseman. they say the thing, and she's like, there's no fucking way that somebody I knew that I said that in high school with doesn't write for BoJack Horseman or said it,
Right.
you know, and kind of pass on that story, because it is a funny story.
Yeah, it is a funny story.
Her mother, right? But yeah, the thing that like passes. I had this in a previous conversation with Cosell Organism, where we were discussing like how music shifts across the nation. You know, he was from Detroit, he lives in LA.
Yeah.
And, you know, just talking about, you know, and also a good example is Dilla and Madlib, you know, like somebody hears it there, they go to LA, they're like, look, y'all got to like hook up. This is a whole thing. And, you know, meanwhile, you know, you look at these trends and these tapes and these like, and these artists that kind of gain popularity, and it has to be through friends, but I suspect mostly cousins. I think cousins come around, they're like, you got to hear this, you know, like, I got this.
Well, what about like internationally, when we think about like Detroit and like the relationship between Detroit and like Berlin, you know, and that's been a long and deep and constant thing, and they've been informing each other musically for a really long time. Whose cousin is going from Detroit?
Maybe someone in the military. Yeah, maybe a military person, you know? How many cousins? You got a lot of cousins?
I got a lot of cousins. Yeah.
Yeah. Are they all into music? They all like the things? How do y'all?
I think it's like a cultural thing. Like everyone in my family like sings and dances, and I guess that's typical with everyone except for Americans, right? Like, probably.
Yeah, I think I'm the only dancer in my family. We're all smartasses, though. We're all fucking amateur comedians for sure. Even chiller, like the three, fucking cracking jokes and talking shit to me. I'm like, you're three. I'll fucking throw you in a trash can. I don't care. I don't like kids. Did any of them ever go to raves? You ever rave together? You were a rave family.
Did I take I took one of my cousins to a rave when I was like in high school. I fed her like mini thins. We used to did you guys ever do mini thins?
Totally. Yeah, 100%.
Until they like took them off of the market because they realized everyone was trying to get high on them. Right. But yeah, I fed her a bunch of mini thins and took her to a rave, and it blew her mind. Yeah.
I still have a pack of Mexican Ritalin I got like 4 or 5 years ago, and I keep them in my travel bag just in case. Somebody always on the trip gets too fucked up, they can't hold their head up, and I got to shove a Mexican Ritalin in their mouth and be like, we got to go to dinner, get it together, you know. And then they're like, I can't eat. Like, this is really. I'm like, they're really strong, right? I don't ever fucking take them. Like, they're emergencies only. I was reading interviews. I was catching up. I said, who is this Anna Momo? I want to know more about her. You know, what can I find? And I saw a thing, and we talked a little bit about this last night when we met. We're talking about going to the rave for the first time and how we felt. And you mentioned this in the interview too, where you said you walked in and you felt as if you were home. And I had the exact same feeling. Yeah. Can you describe a little bit about what that was like to me, or describe it to us?
Oh, the first time I was at a rave, it just felt. I mean, this is kind of deep, but I was a pretty depressed kid. I felt like really alone and really isolated, extremely misunderstood, just like a total outsider. I grew up in like a super Christian household. I was not a Christian. I had a difficult time connecting to like organized religion, and also I was the only non-Black person in my house, so I was always called the Chinese cousin. I'm not Chinese, but you know, it's kind of saying like China, like and so I was othered even in my own home, you know, like even in the place I grew up. And then I went to a rave, and I took MDMA, and it was as if like I got like plugged back into like the universal, you know, like juice, like back to the source, where all of a sudden, definitely MDMA, you know, for sure helped facilitate that. But that mixed with the music, mixed with a bunch of strangers that just wanted to hug and kiss me, like I was just like, yeah, can we just do this forever? And that's basically how I ended up where I am now. Is I just never stopped doing that. You know, I was like, I'm just gonna do this until we're done.
Until they say I cannot do it, they won't. No, I think we're twins. Same thing. You know, it was like othered, or I wasn't enough, or maybe I was too much, and then you know, like just trying to figure out where I fit in, but at the same time picking up these different things. You know, like definitely, you know, I remember the first time I fell in love with hip hop. I was 8, Yo MTV Raps, De La Soul, Me, Myself, and I, and I said, that's who I am. That's me. And then the next time was walking into a rave. I think I was 17, and the minute it was Austin Music Hall. The minute I walked inside, I was like, this is it. This is where it's home. This is where I'm always going to be. This is who I am. I had to take a hiatus, or like after things went into massives, I took a little hiatus there, and I was like, a lot of my friends were dying. So I was like, you know, I had to, you know, like kind of shift away, and I was like, found myself in a pop punk and like screamo group of kids, and I was like, what are y'all doing here? Y'all like Ween? What's going on? What are you
I
doing?
was going to punk and ska shows before I found the rave scene.
Mm-hmm.
And then I took ecstasy and I was like, y'all are really sad and mad. And
you always want a girl and you can't get her. You should talk to her. I don't understand why, you know. Maybe your shoes smell because you never get change them.
When the massive started happening, I remember like raves got weird. I remember like Ron Jeremy hosting raves and like, like be like porn stars hosting raves. And there would be like I went to one rave in New York and Slipknot was there and like the guys from Jackass.
I hate that.
And also Method Man and
saw him at a couple of raves.
and then I met ODB was at this one rave in the DMV room.
Pop shops.
He smoked PCP on stage.
That'll happen.
Yeah.
PCP is wild. Like I never had. I've never. There's a few drugs where I'm like, I don't really feel like ever doing that. And I remember some kid was like, I smoke PCP or whatever, and I was like, why? What do you like about it? And he was like, I just feel like so confident I could rob a bank. And I was like, okay, right there, like that whole sentence right there is like a big fucking no, man. I think that there was an Electric Daisy Carnival here, like when it first started kicking off, and it had it at the there was an old airplane hangar, and they had the rave. Cool Keith he was throwing out fried chicken in little plastic bags and Capri Suns. He just tossed them in the crowd.
That's hilarious.
But they also had a military sign up. So kids were all fucked up when they had a table where they were like trying to enlist people in the fucking military and shit.
Whoa, that's kind of dark.
And I was all like,
that's dark.
Yeah, that's real dark.
That shouldn't be considered consensual.
Not at all, but I think that it was, we're still doing Desert Storm, or no, we were back, we're now in it probably was a Desert Storm situation. Desert Storm bleeds into the 9/11, Building 7, inside job. But like it kind of bleeds over those wars. I guess they overlap and whatnot, right? We never pulled out of Iraq and then went straight into.
I had a conversation once with a friend about who's British about 9/11. I was like, I don't know anyone in New York City who doesn't think it was an inside job. And he was like, don't you think that if it was like at this point, like the truth would have come out, it would have been so many people that would have had to be involved with it, all this stuff. And I was like,
we still don't know who fucking killed JFK.
No, I don't think.
It was like a guy in a grassy knoll was fucking good. Now they're like, they were mind controlling him with fucking LSD or whatever. We don't know.
Yeah.
And I think, my friend says don't give him too much credit. But I'm like, when you don't give him too much credit, that's when you should give him credit. I don't know if that works, but you feel what I'm saying? I'm just not going to ignore.
Yeah.
I'm not going to ignore some of the weird shit.
The fact of the matter is, whatever they claimed happened is we know is not what happened. So,
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know that the Patriot Act is a whole acronym. Whenever they came out with the Patriot Act, which means every single word in the Patriot Act letter stands for a word.
Oh wow.
And I know it's too long. I can't recall what it is, but it basically says we can have your fucking data. But what makes me mad about that is that during a time of crisis, they were like, we need a catchy name. Somebody Ellen, go in that room and we want to say Patriot Act, figure out how to make it work. That's a lot of letters to make into a word that makes sense, to a phrase. It's just, Anyways, Bush is evil, Reagan to burn in hell. So rave, we're coming home. Do you remember who you were first seeing at your very first rave? Do you remember who was playing? For me, it was Electric Sky Church. Never seen him again after that.
I remember the acts that I remember really being impressed with were like Rabbit in the Moon. I was really into that, like the trancey breaks sound. I was really into trance at the time because I was doing, ecstasy.
I think that's the first.
There was
the gateway.
There was a Space Girl. There was this Russian girl who would show up and play do like live sets. It was like trance, and I was really into that. And then Extreme, and then I started getting really into like LA style, like hard style, like hardcore, like Omar Santana type stuff. This is when I started going straight edge. I told you, like at 16, I was like, I'm not gonna do drugs anymore at the rave.
Right.
So I was just like going to parties completely sober, which I liked because I remembered everything and everyone. And then that's how I got super into like the drum and bass jungle, like the side room vibe. I realized that like trance doesn't hit the same if you're not on ecstasy.
Right. Just doesn't. It's all like you're like, this is really
you're
pretty.
Like,
I feel like a little angel. That's me, right? And you're like wearing baby blue, like cultures. Stuff that was got a gadzooks. I was like, I got into like trance breaks. Way Out West was one of the ones. I remember going to Alien Records here in town, and that was, I had no money, but that was like a CD that I bought. I think it still holds up too. The Gift, Way Out West, really good. but probably more cinematic. Could probably be placed in a movie than I wouldn't want to, spend all night, doing drugs and dancing around to it. It's I think it is the gateway. Side rooms. I was talking to Nicky Nair a few interviews ago, and he was mentioning, like getting started out doing the side room, and that's something that raves are lacking these days. There's no side room. Do they have a side room in LA? What's going on? What are they doing out there?
Yeah, not really. So, I mean, I also am very fond of like, because at that time when you were going to parties, there was usually like 2 or 3 areas of sound. There was like usually, the main floor, which would be like house, techno, trance, and then your side room, which was like hardcore, D&B, jungle, gabber,
Right.
and then the outdoor or whatever, like chill out area where it'd be like more ambient, whatever vibes.
Yeah.
And I am really partial to that, and so much so that when I usually go out, I go to multiple events in a night so I can get that feeling of like all the spots, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you want to hit all the spots,
where
like
you're going, and
all
you're
the
like,
chakras.
yeah,
I'm like, I'm gonna go here for this, I'm gonna go here for this, I'm gonna go here for that. Like
try it on.
And I miss the multi-genre, like vibe that there used to be. But now I feel like that's coming back, but it's more coming back in like one set.
Right.
Like I went to see Object with some friends the other night in LA, and it was just like a big warehouse party. And my friend, he's like a decade older than me, and he's this really sick like DJ and producer. He was like, the set feels like, it feels like all of the rooms in one set,
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, yeah. And I feel like that luckily is becoming more and more of a thing, which is very much like how I play. And the people who have influenced me. I think I was in the scene for a really long time, and I didn't start DJing until I was like 30. I was like way late. And partially I think being like a woman of color, maybe not seeing yourself represented in that way. You kind of don't really think about yourself as being in that, like that being for me kind of thing. But also it took me a while to hear people play in a way that I was like, I relate to that. Like that feels like something I would do.
Right.
I think there were a few people in New York. There's a few like very strong local DJs. There's a lot of really strong local DJs in New York, honestly. But I think it was Jubilee, who was one of the big influences on me. Like she was playing like Sean Paul, grime, house, electro breaks in one set. And I was just like, this is, I was like, this, if I was going to DJ, it would sound something like this. It'd be like all my favorite tracks. And that's basically still how I DJ. Like, because I never know what I'm going to play until I start playing. Like, I don't like plan out sets. And it's partially because I like want to feel, what's going on. I'm listening to what's happening before me. I'm looking at what's happening after me. And most people do have like a genre or BPM range they stay in. So I'm kind of like, you don't want to give people stuff that they've already had or they've had for too long. Unless it feels like they really want to stay in that zone. But you can tell, like, do they want to shift? Is this the vibe? If it's not the vibe, then let's go somewhere else. But either way, like, I feel like it takes like being, I don't know, present to really understand how to have that conversation, like with the audience and with yourself in a way that feels authentic.
It's an emotional intelligence. You seem as an emotional intelligent person. Now you're applying this.
I honestly feel like empathy is one of the strongest, like, traits a DJ can have. Like that ability to feel what's happening in the room and then respond like in real time and be like, what do people need right now? Like where are they at? How are they feeling? And I think that that's one of the things to me that distinguishes, because right now we have a thing where in America for sure, more than other places, the role of the DJ and the producer are getting very deeply intertwined. And a lot of producers are forced to DJ when most of them just want to be in the studio. They don't want to be out necessarily DJing, but they have to do it to make money. Or you have a lot of DJs that are, if they're like being told, if you're not a producer, like no one cares. So they're like being forced to make music that maybe they don't want to be in the studio because they're just very different personality types. They're very different skill set types. I just think that for me, when I'm listening to a producer set, it's usually not someone that spent a lot of time on the dance floor or like listening to what people are telling them. It's more like I created a thing, I made a gift, and I'm gonna present it to you, right? Versus like a DJ is often like, where are the people at? Where are you at? And like, how do I just turn you on? And it's kind of a different conversation. Like one is more of a conversation, and one is a little bit more like, you know,
like an offering.
Yeah.
Right? Like in a way, like a blessing to them. And this, I love how you put this. I think that it's somewhere I think that encompasses all the artistic communities, right? They're doing their thing, and somebody's like, well, we need you to do this other thing because money.
Yeah.
And with production, obviously you are producing and you are DJing. What was it? Was it similar? That the reasons you just gave, was that a similar way why you went into production? What drove you towards that?
It wasn't, honestly. It wasn't a plan. I just naturally started making edits for my like DJ sets. And then other DJs were asking me like for those edits. And then basically there's a producer in New York who's also an amazing DJ called Dr. Jeep. And we had a back-to-back. He invited me to Lot Radio to do a back-to-back with him on the radio. And he was like, afterwards, he was like, do you make music? I feel like we have the same exact taste. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I do, but like, I don't really finish stuff. He was like, you know what, come to my house and like, let me see your projects. Bring your Ableton, let me see your projects. So I went to his house and he gave me tips on how to finish some stuff. And he took this one edit that I had made. It was like a dance hall tune that I just threw like these Doc Scott like drums on, like this like D&B like drums on this like dance hall tune. And he was like, this is sick. I'm gonna play it on Red Bull Radio tomorrow. And he did. And he shouted me out. And anytime I would see him play live, and he was one of my favorite DJs, he would play one of my tracks in his sets. And that really was one of the things that pushed me towards production. It was that it was getting a lot of support from people I respected. And that like, I was basically just, it was very organic. I was making these edits for my sets. People were like, these are dope, I want them. And then eventually what happened was labels started asking me for original tracks, and I was like, well, I'll figure it out. And then like,
I can do that.
But what's funny is I am more of a DJ, and I consider myself a DJ. The production stuff has been, it's usually just because people are asking me for something. So it's rare that I just like go in the studio and just like make something that I want to share. A lot of the stuff that I do make in the studio, it's more like journal entries. They're a bit like personal.
Okay, right, yeah.
They're not like exactly dance floor stuff. But then the stuff that I share, it's literally just because like a label has asked me, like they're like, can we have a track? Can we have something for this? And so almost everything that I've released, and I looked the other day on my like SoundCloud, it's like something like 30 or 31 tracks by now, like things that I've like put out. But almost all of them are just for someone else. And so I think about it too. My approach to it is very similar to DJing in that I think about the context of, well, what is this label? What do they represent? What are their sounds? Who's listening to them? Et cetera, et cetera. What does Anna Morgan sound like through that lens? So it's still a sort of adaptive thing versus like, what do I have to say right now in this moment that's personal? Like less about personal expression and like more about like, I don't know, being of service. Yeah.
Right there, and just for a second, like going into like, my day job and stuff, I use that, right? I'm all like, look, I'm at service. I'm serving the people above me. I'm serving the people below me. And I think that that's, usually where, you could apply that to almost anything that you do. And you should, right? Like, it's like you're constantly serving someone else. And in that, you're going to, get served back, right? Like, you're going to like, obviously there's injustices and there's things that like aren't fair. But, I think in the long run, no matter what the payout would be, you still know that you did something true and something good.
That reminds me of someone once said to me that there are two approaches to doing anything, or two paths. There's the path of serving yourself and the path of serving others. And like you can do anything in those two ways, essentially. Yeah. And I thought that was interesting, and I don't know, I've been thinking about that a lot. And I feel like something about like if you're doing something in service to other people, it does come back to you in like a way that's like satisfying and like healing and like healthy. But if you're doing something in a cycle where it's only like energy is just feeding back into itself, it can get perverse. Right. Yeah.
Right. It begins to like lose some of that that intention, right? You're kind of like, in a way it's almost like a a slot machine. You know, you're gonna get pulling in here, like one of these is gonna do, or like, you know, I mean, obviously you're serving yourself, you're trying to get what you want, but maybe there's even a danger, and, you know, continually say that you're serving someone, but you really have the focus on for it coming back to you, which I notice people say as well.
Right. Oh,
like,
yeah,
it's
for
gonna be
sure.
good karma for me, and I'm like, you know, you can't. There's no guarantees.
Yeah.
There's no guarantees.
Yeah.
About, you know, the production and what you're doing and how you're applying your theory and your strategy and thinking about, you know, Anna Morgan through this lens. You have a track named Grace. And, you know, yeah. You know.
So actually, that track is one of the few things I've put out that is personal.
Okay.
And I wrote that for me.
Right.
And, there's a Nicki Minaj sample in it. There's also a sliver of, so I had just watched a Grace Jones interview. I don't know if you caught that. There's a classic Grace Jones interview sample that I have in there because I had just watched the interview, and what happened was I wasn't getting paid. I had like 3 different male promoters that owed me money, and I really felt like I wouldn't have been in that situation if I didn't have a vagina. And I was I'd seen this Grace Jones, who's like, big up Grace Jones. She's like, you know, one of the most like iconic Jamaicans. I love her forever. You know, this jerk is just like interviewing her and asking her, you know, like these questions about like, you know, is she like if she's like kind of like an intimidating woman and like things like this, you know, and
question.
Yeah, it's just really dumb. And she was just like, I just want people to be on their best behavior. You know what I mean?
Right.
But yeah, that tune was specifically like kind of like a fuck you to like dudes, like fuck dudes basically in the industry, and it was like a big up to like other women in the industry,
which ends up actually serving them, right? Because it, you know, you mentioned that it's dedication to women who define their own femininity, and clearly you know you touched on this a little bit. And I think that we all have a story about this where like a man or a work just wants to define what your femininity should be. You know, I run into this constantly, especially being like the breakdance scene.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, and also being a music fan, right? Like, and just being so in tune to like music history and like different genres and everything like that. And that can be intimidating to men sometimes. I don't know if it's intimidating to women. I'm intimidated by, I can't ask a woman out. I'm just like, if you shoot me down, that's it. I'm just fucking done. I'm hanging on by a string. I can't handle one more heartbreak.
I'm honestly very similar with women, like where I can't say no to women.
Yeah, totally.
It's terrible. Whatever you want. I'll be your doormat.
Yeah. My friends' girlfriends are like, I don't know about her. I'm all like, I will give you anything. You want a soda? I'll fucking find one right now. I'll make it. I don't care. Like, I'm like, you're my fucking homie's girlfriend. But even like trying to see a beautiful woman, I'm like, I can't. I don't know what to say, you know, but with a man, they're kind of dumb. I can pretty much say anything until I start talking about shit I like. Then they're a little bit intimidated.
Well, you know, it helps that I'm boob height. I'm pretty small, so I just motorboat. I'm just kidding.
Bucks, yeah. You know, I need to get some babies.
I'm not kidding.
I would love a motorboat here and there. But yeah, you know, like, so, you know, I assume that, you know, we're up here. We've been living, we've been experiencing, we have lots of, you know, experiences under our belt, you know, but in that time, you know, you've probably had somebody try to define your femininity in so many different aspects.
I mean, all the time. I battled against this, like, when I was a kid, constantly, because I was like a total tomboy, because my father raised me. But, you know, and then it wasn't until when I was in my early 20s, I started dancing. I was stripping. And this was when I finally appreciated my femininity. I was pissed about it. I was pissed about being in a female body. I felt like I had been shortchanged. And then when I started dancing, I was like, oh, there's some power in this. This is cool. And then I started playing a lot more with like feminine energy. And then I met a group of essentially like witches. Who took me in, and then that's when I really started like understanding the power of the feminine divine and really like cultivating that in myself and cultivating that in relationship with other women. You know, what's funny is now I have all these friends that are like non-binary, which makes like perfect sense to me. And I was like, if I was a younger person, honestly, like probably I would want to be considered non-binary, but I've done so much work to establish that like, just because I don't fit into this like idea of woman, you know,
Right.
this like mass idea of like what it is to be feminine or what it is to be a woman doesn't make me any less of a woman. I'm just like my own version of that.
Right.
And
Right.
so I think that like having carried that torch for a long time, I'm like comfortable now. I've accepted. I
Yes.
was like, I'm a girl. This is cool. I still feel like I'm playing like dress up if I like, but you know what I mean, like
Yeah.
the hair and the net, like to me
Totally.
it's like dress
Yeah.
up, the heels, like a
Yeah.
dress, like I definitely feel like not myself, but like it's fun, you know. It's
Yeah.
like a bit of a costume.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that as well. I'm unpacking all of my clothes, and like I think generally during the day I'm very tomboyish. Like I like my little baseball hat and like a crop top with like baggy jeans or whatever. I look cute, but like I also have really sexy clothes and like really cute heels. Like and a little bit of a sub in bed. But like I don't know if that actually means actually that part doesn't even define femininity. But for what I'm getting at actually is that for such a long time up until the non-binary discussion did come in to the social fold, that I was like I never saw myself as a woman. I was like, I'm a Misa. This is who I am. I'm a Misa. Misa likes to do these things. She's making these choices, and like the only time I really felt a woman was when I was being discriminated against or like sexually assaulted or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, taken advantage of by some like boyfriend who thought I was lesser than and like was treating me like as as a subordinate. Which happens to be what happens to women in popular culture, right? And clearly you've mentioned this, that you've experienced this with like people and artists, and like they've tried to define this, they've tried to do whatever they can to box you in and define serenity, like femininity for you. And like now that as you're older, do you find yourself when that does, if that happens, and when that does happen, how quick are you to squash that whole situation?
Honestly, as I've gotten older, I don't even pay it any mind. Like, when I was younger, I was definitely, not that I'm like old, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's a point where you just have fire and you're like more confrontational about stuff.
Yes.
And then like there are some things now where it's like, you're not even worth my like energy. Like your vibration is like so not even, it's so low. Like you're not even real to me. Like I'm not even gonna bother with you in that conversation.
Who is also sick of it, probably.
It's generally if I feel like the moment is teachable and like someone actually has an air where they like be willing to listen, that I'll be willing to have that conversation and be like, you know what, you did this, like didn't make me feel great. Et cetera, and see where,
I don't like that. The way you did that was not cool.
I did actually recently have a thing where I was like booked for this like really big show. Did not feel great about it. I emailed the promoters after, two straight white dudes, and never got an email back. Never got it. And I was like, cool, that just tells me where you stand.
100%, dude. I did that here. Even he wasn't a white male, but he was a straight dude, and we had a lot of beef or whatever. Actually, he had a lot of beef with me. I have no reason why. We're both in the breakdance scene, and it went on years, and it was just like a harrowing, hero's journey for me. And I thought it was always amusing. So I was like, you really try hard to like hold me down. I honestly don't give a shit. Because the minute that, So I remember once trying to squash it with him and like shaking his hand, looking in his eye, and I was like, hey. I've always respected what you did. If you want to try it a little bit more, we can step outside and just have a little talk. He's like, oh, all right, I'll meet you out there. Never fucking came outside. I was like, well, okay. Like at least now I know that I put, my foot forward to squash it. And it's like here on out, I really don't give a fuck about it. I never did before, but now it's just like, you've really kind of lowered yourself in my eyes because you didn't take the opportunity to meet me, and just be, and squash it and just put it to bed, right? Instead, you're going to be a little bitch about it. Not to feminize the word bitch, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but to being a little worm, I like that actually. Calling people little worms, a little worm, a little worm, I'm gonna squash you. Okay, so I was again doing some research, checking out. We're talking about promoting. We're talking about parties. We're talking about clubs. You're obviously a strong, independent woman who's creative. I saw that you curated a festival in El Salvador, of all places.
I did.
What was that? Such a wow. Tell us what going on.
Wow, that was a long time ago. But basically, I had these friends that threw a festival in El Salvador, and then the next year, the guy that owned the venue that the event had happened in they weren't coming back to do it. So he contacted me and was like, will you do it this year? And I was like, okay.
Very lax.
And then luckily this team, they're architects, this team. They came back and were like, we are gonna do it. And I was like, cool, can I just do the music part? So I just got to do the lineup and the music scheduling and stuff. And I did book like I do with a lot of lineups. And it's funny because the thing I don't really openly talk about in that way, but it was mostly women. And that's where I met my partner, who I run the label Worst Behavior Rex with. I had booked another Jamaican from Boston who now goes by, was it Chocolate Thunder? But they were going by Rack City and then Rakita, and now it's like Chocolate. Well, anyways, they brought Bell Curve, who's my partner in the label, and that was Bell Curve's like first festival. And stuff. But it was just
what a fun time. You're creating the label, the Worst Behavior, which I love the name, and I read a little bit how that started, and like, and love the collaboration. She was like, I think it was you that said, I want them all in the Worst Behavior. Was it
Bell Curve said this? So basically, we were talking about her first EP release party. And she was like, I just want people to play whatever I want them to play like their B-sides, and like I want them to be on like their worst behavior, like play what they feel like they shouldn't be allowed to. Let's just get weird. And I was like, you know what? And for like a year, we were like, we need a name for this label we keep talking about. So that's how I was like, Worst Behavior. I was like, that'd be a good name for a party. Or we could do, be named for the label. So that's how we got the name for the label, Worst Behavior Rex.
So Isabel, big thing, right? Bell Curve. She's saying like, oh, I met my homegirl. Now we're doing a label. Now I'm fucking out my first like fucking El Salvador festival. What a big time for you. I love that for you. We love experiences. We love a good success story. You do so much. You're out here. You're creating. You're working. You're on the phone. You're making mixes. You're on the laptop. How do you relax? What's it look like? That's not the time that you
I like a hot tub. I like to smoke some weed.
Oh yeah, I love it. Edibles? You like edible? You like a
I can't with the edibles.
What about dabs? I don't do the dabs.
I can't really with the dabs either. The last time I dabbed, I'm pretty sure I had what's probably a panic attack.
Oh, totally.
I had never had a panic attack before, but like I was describing, I was like everything went numb and tingly, and like everything started closing in, and I was like, I can't see right now. And my friend was like, and she was like, are you having a panic attack? I was like, I don't know, I just dabbed.
Yeah, like, read Google it. Symptoms.
And then I was like, yo, nobody needs to be this high ever. I never need to be this high again.
Sure. Did you ever do knife hits with hash? Did you ever do that?
No.
My friends would get like little pieces of hash, and we'd get two like cheap butter knives in their shitty apartment. We'd put it like on an electric stove. We would heat up the little butter knives, and then it would get so hot. And then we'd take a little hash and we'd put it in, and then it'd be like, now inhale the smoke that comes out of the butter knives with the hash. And I never got, or they'd put it under like a plastic solo cup and you have to suck it out. Man, I lived ratchet for a good minute. So like the 2000s, we were at a war.
We were at a war.
We were in war. It was wartime. Bush was president.
I recently got into some ketamine.
Love that, yeah.
When I was in Hawaii, instead of going out, we were doing like playing chess and doing K. And
good old time.
I do like a little bit of that. These are the research is in. The research is in. It's actually incredible.
We called it in the 90s and the 2000s. We did, we were like, look, these drugs pretty good. Make you feel some stuff. You should probably dip in.
Yeah.
I tried to sell ketamine in the early 90s before, like it was really wild, right? Like everybody was on meth, and I was like trying to sell. And I'm also a terrible drug dealer, and I found that out in the 90s, and I was like shoulder tapping at a fucking rave, and I'm like, would you? And they're like, what? I was like, would you like some ketamine? And they're like, what is it? I'm like, horse tranquilizers? And they're like, God, no. And then I couldn't get enough money to buy my acid, which is what I really wanted. So stop that. But then now, they're charging thousands of dollars, $3,000 sessions for a ketamine session.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, there's ketamine clinics.
Mm-hmm. My friend who was going to meet us for dinner, he had some breakthroughs on ketamine, but then he was also like, if you feel good for like the hour after, then it's just all back to the shit. I'm like, you gotta do the work.
You gotta do the work. You gotta do the work.
You gotta dig in. It's also a man. I don't think they can. I'm not a man hater. I'm just saying. I've had a lot of experience. So you're relaxing. You're doing your hot tub. What about comfort food? You have the oxtails.
Comfort foods. I like soup. I make a lot of soups. I make soups constantly. Yeah.
What soup did you make recently?
You know, well, yesterday I made like a curry lentil.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the
I
morning,
like
because it was what was in my house.
mushroom barley. I like a beef mushroom barley. I also
I
like
do like a mushroom
wild
barley.
turkey or wild rice and turkey with mushroom. I like mushrooms a lot.
Mushrooms are my favorite.
Really, mine
They're
too.
my favorite food to eat.
Oh.
Not only are they delicious, they're also so cute.
They are so adorable.
They're so cute.
You ever go to a place and they have all these different mushrooms, and you're just like, I've never even heard about this. You know, the lion's mane. I fried it.
Oh man,
so
I made a crab cakes once out of lion's mane.
Me too. Delicious.
So good.
Yeah, I was like,
so
I would do this again. Lion's mane, very expensive though.
Very
also
good for your brain. Very good for your brain.
Oh, right. Yeah. So
and your memory.
You're here. You've done some things.
You're
a lovely lady. You know, like what advice would you give to these aspiring, DJs? And it doesn't have to be gender specific. Just anybody who's coming up and they said, you know what, I want to get myself a little setup. I want to play a party sometime.
I would say if you feel inclined to do it, just do it. Don't feel like you have to do it the way anyone else says you have to do it. Don't feel like you have to do it the way that it's, DJ culture is a very strong and alive thing. But you don't have to fit yourself into that. Like, you can be your own model. You can use yourself as the measure. So long as you have an idea of like what you want to hear, and that's not a thing that's happening, just make that real, and do it because you can't not do it.
This is very true.
Yeah.
There's so many things where I was like on the fence of, and I said, if on my deathbed, what will I regret not doing it? And if the answer is yes, then I fucking do it, no matter what cost.
Yeah, because even if it doesn't work out in whatever way you want it to, you'll at least know that, and you won't be wondering like, what if I, which is the worst. It's actually the worst.
Yeah, it really is.
And I think that it's also really important for people who aren't used to seeing themselves, reflected, whether that's sonically, like maybe there's music that you want to hear that just doesn't exist yet. That's all of the more reason for you to be doing the thing, is because we need that offering. Like, the world needs that. We need it. So yeah, I would say just be you and be as authentic to that as possible. Like, do you as hard as you can, and if someone says that's weird and that's different, just keep doing that, because that's eventually the thing that's going to make you special.
You think that Diva want to take off those little hats? You know what I'm saying? Somebody, I'm sure, told them they're weird. Now look at it. Love those hats. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for bringing your robe. Thank you for hanging out with me today and drinking these little mezcalitas that we're having. We're gonna have some more. We're gonna go have a dinner. I don't know where, but we're gonna do that. I'm going to see you tomorrow. You're going to fucking melt my face with the bass. And I'm just so happy that I met you. Anna Momo.
I'm going to change my name to Anna Momo now.
It finally worked. We got Nikki 2K. We got Anna Momo. And Craw Bobby. He doesn't like it.
Thanks for having me.
I love you.
Oh, I love you.
Okay.
Yay.